So Mr. Uday Mahurkar is an author, political analyst. He is specialized in 4 subjects: Veer Savarkar's legacy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi governance, radical Islamic movements and distorted history. He had written 2 books on PM Narendra Modi's governance titled Center Stage and Marching with a Billion. Currently he is in the Central Information Commission in the post of a judge in the Central RTI Court. Talking about our next discussion for today, Mr. Abhilash Khandekar. Mr. Abhilash Khandekar is a veteran, multilingual journalist of standing close to 40 years in print and electronics media. He is also an environmentalist and a sport administrator. A journalist, he has worked in various capacities with Free Press Journal, Hindustan Times, DNA, Dainik Bhaskar, and with various TV channels. He has been the editor of the Dainik Bhaskar group of newspaper in MP and Maharashtra between 2006 and 2014. Let's have a round of applause for them. Talking about the book, which shall be discussed in this session, about the Veer Savarkar, the man who could have prevented the partition, presents as an entirely new perspective of Savarkar's legacy. So that's all from my side. Now, gentlemen, the stage is yours. Now, let them initiate with a huge round of applause.
वो उस सेशन में है अभी, so we would like to wait for a minute or two because I am getting messages that they are reaching here from the other session. But meanwhile, I am wearing of the for the 4th year in. Uday Mahurkar from Ahmedabad. He is now in Delhi for some time, but he is a top-notch journalist of the country, having served India Today for many, many years in Ahmedabad and many other places. So I welcome you, Mahurkar Sahib. And congratulations to your third book. And it has done really well. I got many good reviews, and I've seen prime-time discussions that have happened around it after it was launched late last year in October, November. And besides congratulating for a book on Savarkar, because there is no dearth of books on Savarkar, but you have taken an entirely different view through your research, which is wonderful. And we all know that Savarkar was a staunch nationalist and an early leader of Hindutva movement. There are many facets to his life. A large number of Indians treat him as their hero. Others have demonized him and maligned him for his Hindu philosophy. I would like to know from you about his basic character and his leadership abilities. But before that, I would also like to say for the viewers that I will that Mr. Mahurkar has not only done the biographical work for this book on Veer Savarkar, but he has written about the incidences and the chain of events that took just before the partition, and what was the role of Muslim League, what was the role of Congress, what was the role of Mahatma Gandhi, and how all Congress leaders and others and Muslim leaders, they at times supported Jinnah, at times supported Nehru, at times supported, but nobody heard what Savarkar was shouting from the top of his voice. And the title of the book is Veer Savarkar, the man who could have prevented partition. So the point here that he is raising, Mr. Mahurkar, I would like to ask him his first question after reading this book, which is quite a gripping book, I must say. The Savarkar's Hindutva is basically unalloyed nationalism that puts a nation before religion. So would you like to elaborate on that? Because I have been repeatedly reading in this book that there is an unalloyed nationalism. So this is something.
First, I'll put shortly as to what this book is about. You see, when you talk about Savarkar, the image which comes before us is of a revolutionary. Nobody has studied Savarkar after 1937. 1937 is the year when he came into politics, stepped into politics. And his vision for national security and diplomatic vision for free India That also nobody knows. He was alive till 1966. But because of his involvement in Gandhi murder, he took almost retirement from politics, but he had a role to play after that also, So basically, the controversy are two, three about Savarkar. One is about his Hindutva. People who don't agree with him, people who oppose him ideologically, they say that it's a divisive ideology. Another is about his mercy petitions. That will come later, of course. So what is Savarkar's Hindutva? We have proved through extensive research, examples, that Savarkar's Hindutva is unalloyed nationalism, which is nationalism without conditions, which rises above religious, caste and regional considerations. It is a unifying ideology, it is not a divisive ideology. Correct. So we have to look at it from this point of view. Unfortunately, because of Gandhiji's murder, things went in a certain direction which were not in the benefit of the country. Free speech, free debate was trampled upon, and only one narrative was allowed to flourish. Now, there are three examples which prove that Savarkar's Hindutva doesn't seek special rights for the Muslims at the cost of the rights of others, but is actually a fight for equal rights. So first you have to see the chapter of Muslim appeasement, how it started. Sayyid Ahmad Khan, he is the original symbol of what you call two-nation theory. Now, he is the founder of Aligarh Muslim University. He was a great reformer also. But, if you look at his 1988 speech before a set of Muslims in Meerut, in fact, there are two speeches. It is very clear as to what he is talking about. He has spoken in terms of Hindu-Muslim unity also. But we have tried, through research, we have tried to prove, and proved rather, that when there was a substantial Hindu crowd, he used to talk in terms of Hindu-Muslim unity. And especially before the Hindu Rajas, because they donated a lot of money for Aligarh Muslim University. Based on his plea that he wants to reform the Muslim community, which he did to some extent. Nobody says no. In 1988, while addressing a crowd of Muslims, this is all on record. I mean, I am not adding. This all material is there in public domain and sufficiently proved, 1888. He says that tomorrow, if British were to leave this country, what will happen? He said two swords cannot be there in one scabbard. दो तलवार एक म्यान में नहीं रह सकती. One has to defeat the other to be able to decide the issue of who will rule this country. And he says that our Pathan brothers will come from northwest frontier. They will help us. Will defeat the Hindus और बंगाल तक खून की नदियां बह जाएंगी. क्या सावरकर ने ऐसी भाषा में बात की थी? कभी नहीं की थी. फिर मुस्लिम अपीसमेंट कैसे बढ़ा? देखिए 1857 के बाद एक डर तो था ही ब्रिटिशर को कि ये हिंदू मुस्लिम एक नहीं होना चाहिए. तो उनके अपने जो थे जो स्ट्रेटेजी थी अलग करने की, है ना. तो कांग्रेस फर्स्ट स्टेप टुवर्ड्स मुस्लिम अपीसमेंट वाज 1916 लखनऊ पैक्ट. लखनऊ पैक्ट के अंदर 1916
or 1921.
1916 Lucknow Pact, which was led by Tilak. Tilak reached a conclusion that Muslims, British are trying to divide Hindus and Muslims, and if we can give something to the Muslims, if they can come, it would be good. Therefore, he considered more seats, much more seats for the Muslims in provincial assemblies in Hindu majority states. same advantage was not given to Hindus proportionately in Muslim majority provinces. And when Tilak reached Banaras after signing this pact, Hindu Mahasabha leader B.S. Munje, founder of Hindu Mahasabha Madan Mohanji Malviya, they both told him ki Tilak, you committed a great blunder. This is appeasement. He said, look here, there was no other way left. Anyway, this pact is for 10 years. After we feel that it is harmful to Hindus, we can cancel the pact after 10 years. So 10 years, there will be review of this pact. Achha, one more thing I would like to tell you. Who drafted the Lucknow pact? It was Jinnah. Jinnah was a favorite of Tilak. And Jinnah at that time was a moderate. But his plea was same as today. That if you want to bring the Muslim into mainstream, then we have to give them something special. Same plea was there. Correct? Therefore, I have said in my book that the strategist of the pan-Islamist could not take for a ride only three people. One was Savarkar, another was Ambedkar, and third was B.S. Munje. They succeeded in, I won't use the word befuddling, but misleading even Tilak. Then Gandhiji came. Gandhiji was of the opinion that independence of India is impossible without Hindu-Muslim unity. And that resulted in a model of Hindu-Muslim unity, which I have called in this book, me and my author Chirayu Pandit, Hindu-Muslim unity at any cost or Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. Khilafat happened. We all know what happened in Khilafat. Khilafat, Gandhiji wanted to bring Muslims into the mainstream. He agreed to their pan-Islamic demands. Khilafat, and then it was taken as a license by a section of radical Muslims in Kerala to commit untold atrocities on the Muslims and Christians of Kerala. Correct? So, the formation, the book by Savarkar called Hindutva, which was written in 1923, and the formation of RSS has to be seen in this background.
The formation of RSS in 1925.
These two developments were aimed at ensuring that if there is genuine Hindu-Muslim unity, fine. But if there is Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost, then we will not allow. So these movements, this book and this movement, RSS, were formed to protect the interest of the Hindus, not to seek special rights for the Hindus at the cost of the rights of Muslims or any other community. That you have to think. Correct?
So
when
Udayji, my question is to you.
No, I'll come to that. In Savarkar was in rigorous imprisonment till 1924. In 24, he was released on the condition that he will live in Ratnagiri as a free man, but will not leave the limits of Ratnagiri district, and he will not participate in any political movement. Correct? From that, he was released in 1937. 1937, it was decided Savarkar is a free man, totally, he can participate in politics. Now, what was the situation in 1937 when Savarkar joined, came onto the political scene? In 1930, Sir Muhammad Iqbal, the author of Sare Jahan Se Acha, had become a pan-Islamist, and in the 1930 Muslim League session, he was the person who visualized future homeland for Muslims after partitioning India. He said, I see a future homeland for Muslims in today's Sindh, Punjab, Northwest Frontier Province and Balochistan. Precisely today's Pakistan. Correct? In 1932, there was a Muslim gentleman from Jalandhar called Rahmat Ali Chaudhry, who was studying in Oxford. He coined the word Pakistan. So the word Pakistan came into public domain in 1932. And in 1936, 1 year before Savarkar was released from internment in Ratnagiri, the Britishers, they detached Sindh from Mumbai province. Sindh was part of Mumbai province. Savarkar said that this is part of Anglo-Muslim conspiracy, because he had seen the signals of Pakistan. So 1937 is very clear that things are moving in the direction, might move in the direction of partition if Congress continues to indulge in Muslim appeasement without any restraint. So Hindutva ideology as such came into being because of the Muslim appeasement policies of the Congress and because of the pan-Islamist intentions of a section of Muslims. That you have to understand. So now what is Savarkar's Hindutva? Now Savarkar published in 1930s a Hindu manifesto in which he said what will be the basis of free India, what should be the basis. He said in free India, all religions and castes will have equal rights. Then he goes a step further and says, if should anybody try to hinder the prayers of religious minorities, namely Muslims and Christians, the state will step in and protect them. But then he held out a warning at the third place. He says, but the nation will not allow creation of a nation within a nation in the name of religious minoritism. And that is what has happened after independence. Within 10 years of India's partition and independence, in 1957, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru forged an alliance with Kerala Muslim League in Kerala. Political alliance of the Congress, electoral alliance. So basically, he joined hands with the same people who had partitioned this country. Correct? Second, in 1938, as president of Hindu Mahasabha, Savarkar went to Lahore. And there he was asked by some press reporters that why you in Jinnah are trying to divide the country along religious lines. The reply which Savarkar gave, we have to bear in mind. He said, gentlemen, your question itself is wrong. Myself and Jinnah are not feathers of the same bird. Well, Jinnah is for more and more concessions for Muslims at the cost of Hindu rights. I am for equal treatment for all. In 1939, when a set of Shia Muslims in Lucknow passed a resolution out of a sense of patriotic fervor that any Muslim slaughtering a cow will be considered an enemy of Hindu-Muslim unity. And the second part of the resolution was, that time when Hindus used to pass processions from near the mosque, the Muslims used to object. He said, Muslims now, from now onwards, should not object to processions passing from near the mosques. Savarkar read this statement. He issued a public statement and wrote a letter to the leader of those Shia Muslims. He said, your step is a genuine step in the direction of bringing Hindu-Muslim unity. If such steps keep on coming, Hindu-Muslim unity is possible. And then he said that since your step is so genuine, let me assure you, Hindu Mahasabha will also try to convince the Hindus that they should not deliberately try to bring out processions from near the mosques. Now this is the honesty of Savarkar's nationalism.
So Uday, I would like to interrupt
So
you here just
that,
for a minute.
that answers your question that Hindutva is a unifying ideology. It is not a divisive ideology. And those amongst Hindus today who are trying to see entire Muslim community as villain, they are on the wrong path. They are not on the path of Veer Savarkar.
So there are two small questions that refer to the cow protection, and because cow protection has become a national issue in today's time. Even in UP election, there was. What were the views of Savarkar about cow protection?
Savarkar's about views of cow protection were very unorthodox, and that led to his differences with the RSS at that time. He had said that cow should be seen as a scientific, from scientific angle. You should not attach religious angle to cow. Cow is a useful animal. Yes, we should have it. Correct. And he also produced some evidence. You see, he said that there were battles in the medieval period when Hindus and Muslim rulers were fighting in a battle, and when Hindus were winning, In many battles in Himachal Pradesh also, one gentleman from Himachal Pradesh confirmed this. The Muslim ruler, while he was losing the battle, he brought cow and put them before his army. So that Hindus stopped firing arrows. Correct? So Savarkar said, when such an occasion comes, when you have to choose between cow and the nation, then you have to choose the nation.
Very good.
Correct?
But today, just the opposite is
as an
happening.
author, I have said that it was not proper on the part of Savarkar to create this controversy on cow. I have criticized him for his views on cow because cow is a very religiously a very part of Hindu community, you know. So it was not proper for him to touch that issue. That is what I have said in my book. Yeah.
So I would like to read a
Scientifically, it
little-
was not incorrect.
So I would like to read a little small para which also concerns Bhopal in your book. It says, interestingly, Pakistan was not the final agenda of the dreamers of Pakistan. Rahmat Ali, who had developed this idea, had a bigger dream. According to him, in the beginning, Pakistan would consist of Punjab, the northwest frontier province, Kashmir, Sindh and Balochistan, which you refer to, only. Later, encouraged by the reception from the subcontinent of the Muslim League's 1940 resolutions, as emboldened Rahmat Ali unraveled the second part of his program, embracing Bangistan, which was to include Bengal and Assam. And afterwards, in 1942, he added Osmanistan, comprising Hyderabad, Deccan, and Sindhikistan in Bundelkhand and part of Malwa in Madhya Pradesh. Then Farkusistan in Bihar and Orissa, which is now Odisha, and Hyderistan in United Provinces of Agra and Aundh, and Munistan in Rajasthan, Maplistan in Madras Presidency, Saifistan in Western Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and Nasiristan in Eastern Ceylon. In the maps he had visualized, he renamed Indian subcontinent as Dinia, that is an anagram of India, which with the position of D change, with the ultimate aim of Pakisia. Would you like to say something on that? Because Bhopal was the state which had also refused to
You see,
meet with...
Rahmat Ali Chaudhary, the person who coined the name Pakistan in 1932, he was an out-and-out pan-Islamist. In 1940, when Mr. Jinnah passed the Pakistan resolution, Muslim League, on 23rd March 1940,
Lahore.
he was further emboldened. And then earlier he was visualizing the Pakistan which Iqbal had visualized. And then he came up with these ideas, you know. So they wanted to convert the entire country and even Sri Lanka into an Islamic entity. So that is there, yes.
So,
And I think
I would like
those
to...
among the Muslims who are pan-Islamist. What is the definition of a pan-Islamist? Whichever Muslim dreams of India becoming a Muslim country, say 100 years from now, 200 years from now, he is a pan-Islamist. That is the true definition of pan-Islamist.
So I would like to, now that the crowd has gathered here, that there is something little different in your book, that Savarkar was not just a staunch Hindu leader, but he was also a literary giant. And he became the president of Marathi Sahitya Sammelan way back in 1938. And as what we Litfest we are organizing here today, but Litfest in Marathi literature started 100 years ago. And Savarkar became the president of Marathi Sahitya Sammelan, which one of those was also organized in Indore in 1952 or sometime. But he became the president of 1938 and he was a good author himself. So going beyond that, I would like to ask you that when you persistently say that he was the man who could have actually stopped partition and he was all for militarization of the country. So what is this two theorems that you are elaborating in your book?
As I told you again, this book is about Savarkar's efforts to prevent partition and his national security vision, which includes military vision, diplomatic vision, and how India has suffered by keeping away from that vision. I am saying that had India adopted Savarkar's vision soon after independence, India would have been a superpower today, in every sense.
Could you elaborate about just 2 or 3 points of his vision? Because this book is for the help of audience. See, what exactly you said that he was looking at India
I
as
will
a
come to
superpower.
that. That is very important. What was your first question?
The first question,
Efforts to prevent partition.
prevent partition.
You see, in 1937, when Savarkar came onto the political scene, three people invited him to join Congress: Subhash Chandra Bose, Achyutrao Patwardhan, and S.M. Joshi. They were part of the socialist bloc of the Congress, and they invited Savarkar. Had very radical views. So even socialists of that time used to view him very positively in certain respects, you know. But Savarkar said no. Savarkar said the Congress has gone so far ahead on the path of Muslim appeasement that it cannot retract its steps. And to do Muslim appeasement in Bharatvarsh is betrayal of the nation. And therefore he said, it is better to stand in the last row of patriots than the first row of those people who are betraying the nation in the name of patriotism.
Very important.
So he has seen the dark shadows of minority appeasement as to what it will lead to. So he was first to see partition. Correct? And therefore, he voluntarily joined Hindu Mahasabha. It was a small party. He says this is the only party which is not sacrificing Hindu interest in a country which is a Hindu majority country. That was as a revolutionary in 1905, 3, 4 and 5. Yeah. So he joined Hindu Mahasabha that time, and he started a campaign, one for convincing the Congress that you are on a wrong path, leaders of the Congress, and second was a campaign to enlighten the people in this country. They look here, if the major party of this nation goes in this direction, then India has to pay a very heavy price. And so he made many efforts. He visited major towns of the country. He was the president till 1942. Thereafter, because of his failing health, he had to.
How were his relationship with Ambedkar or Gandhi? Because you have described this. Because Gandhiji had gone to meet him in Ratnagiri many years, and that was a famous meeting.
Ratnagiri meeting is not of much consequence. Important meeting. That time Savarkar led what can be called the biggest movement against untouchability. And V.R. Shinde, Vitthal Ramji Shinde, is a great social reformer of Maharashtra. He has said, had Savarkar in 1937 not jumped into politics and continued his social activity, we would have been able to eradicate untouchability from major parts of this country. That was the level of his.
That was the level.
He used to organize intercaste dinners.
Intercaste
He used
dinners.
to don the dress of a Brahmin. He was a Brahmin. And used to do Janev ceremony of Dalits. Very, I think the biggest movement against untouchability, along with Gandhiji's, was, I think, Savarkar's. But unfortunately, the nation doesn't know about it. So when Gandhiji went there, at that time, when he was in Ratnagiri, Gandhi praised his work. Gandhi praised his work. Yes.
So I was asking you about the relationship between him and Ambedkar and him and Gandhiji about, coming back to this thing about the partition.
Then after, when Gandhiji, Gandhiji was pursuing a policy which I told you, which was Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. So Savarkar had to oppose it. So in that sense, Gandhiji's biggest adversary was Savarkar. Gandhiji, in the Second World War, Gandhiji advised Churchill not to retaliate against Germany when it was attacking London, and told him that you rely on your moral strength. And Savarkar used to say that without military greatness, no nation can become great. So they were, with Ambedkar had great respect for Savarkar, not that there were no differences between them, but he had great respect for Savarkar. When he was made the head of the committee which drafted India's constitution, Savarkar was one of the happiest persons. Correct? Because Savarkar was for eradication of untouchability in that sense, So they had great admiration for each other.
So
and
more
secondly,
important question is about
when Jawaharlal Nehru implicated Savarkar in the Gandhi murder, Ambedkar gave Hindu Mahasabha a lot of moral strength. And there is one document which says that on the first day of the trial, Gandhi trial, Ambedkar, his wife, and Kaka Saheb Gadgil, a very famous leader of the Congress, they were sitting in the first row. And the interpretation is that Ambedkar wanted to ensure that the judge doesn't sway because of the towering personality of Nehru. Therefore, he personally said before in that first hearing. So they had mutual admiration for each other. Not that there were no differences, but they had mutual admiration. And Savarkar is to see Ambedkar as a great intellectual.
Great intellectual. So, I would like you to elaborate on Savarkar's security and diplomatic visions for the thrust of his vision about minority and this, because security is a major portion in your book. And
we have said
his
in this
vision.
book that Veer Savarkar is the father of India's national security. It's a very sweeping statement. But if you read the book, we have produced enough evidence for any person with an open mind to get convinced. You see, Savarkar is that person who predicted 60 to 80 years ago all the problems which India has faced on national security front till today. Pakistan. In 1942, he told Kriplani, do you think that if Pakistan is allowed, our problem will be solved? No. He said those people who are trying to partition the country by holding out a threat of civil war. Just imagine if they get weapons in their hands, if they become their own masters, what they will do. Which is precisely correct today. Pakistan has repeatedly attacked India. Today also we are losing soldiers in Kashmir almost every week. And I think Savarkar's vision has to be respected and accepted. In 1941, when intruders from East Bengal, Muslim intruders particularly, were coming and settling down in the Brahmaputra Valley in very high numbers, Savarkar was the first leader to warn against that from outside Assam. He was the first leader outside Assam to warn. He said these intruders will pose a threat to Assam's culture in future and also the security of India's northeast frontier. Correct? That time Jawaharlal Nehru said, nature abhors vacuum. जहाँ खाली जगह होगी लोग आके रहेंगे हमको उसको कैसे रोक सकते हैं. So Savarkar had his harsh way of saying. One of the reasons where I have criticized him, that he was very harsh in his language. He said, Jawaharlal Nehru has in reaction to Jawaharlal Nehru's statement, that how can we stop people from settling down anywhere, wherever they want, when there is vacant space, He said Jawaharlal Nehru's, knowledge of environment is very, very poor. Nature also abhors poisonous gas. And today, some people might have thought it is a harsh statement, but today if you think,
Looking
there
back,
were only 12% Muslims at that time. Today the Muslim population in Bengal, in Assam is more than 35, almost 36, 37%. And many of them have become Wahhabis. They were not Katrewadis at that time.
in the other hall there is a discussion on a book which claims that the Muslim population is not growing in India.
I had many questions to ask to
Well, we are not
Professor Qureshi, but
So you said that partition was India's self-goal.
it is said.
How would you say that? Because there have been many turning points, including Lahore Muslim League's resolution.
Good question. These people like Madan Mohan Malviya, B.S. Munjay, they knew that India will have to pay a price of Muslim appeasement, unbridled Muslim appeasement. And Savarkar also saw it. So they were warned. Correct? What is the question?
The question is self-goal.
Now,
How was it self-goal?
Pakistan resolution was passed in 1940 on March 23rd. Correct? On 6th April, Gandhiji writes an article, I think in Young Leader it is, or Harijan. He writes an article, he criticizes the idea of partition for very different reasons. He sees everything in terms of Hindu-Muslim unity. So his arguments are very different, not convincing, but he opposed.
Sir,
But in the end, he writes.
sir, could we open stage for questions?
2 minutes.
नहीं, 5 मिनट करेंगे. कितने बजे में पूरा हो रहा है? हाँ. Now, what time the session is ending?
Sir.
12:40.
No, sir, 120.
This is what just 120. You carry on.
Okay.
You carry on.
क्या था आपका प्रश्न? हाँ. So Gandhi ji wrote this article. In the last para he wrote, towards the end of the article he writes that if 8 crore Muslims do not want to live in this country, how can I stop them? He wrote the same article again in June. Correct? We have said that it was considered, Pakistan was considered as soon as the demand was made. That is what I have said in this, me and my co-author, Now, what should have been the strategy? Now, let me tell you one thing. The day partition was claimed by a section of Muslims, there were many Muslim leaders in the country who opposed it. So what Gandhiji and Congress should have done, they should have made an anti-Pakistan front or anti-partition front comprising Congress, Hindu Mahasabha and those Muslim leaders who were against Pakistan. Instead, Congress and Gandhiji chose to deal with Jinnah only. Jinnah's stature started going up like anything, rather skyrocketing. And proportionately, the leaders, those leaders who would oppose partition, their stature started coming down. In the end, they had to join Jinnah in his demand. Correct? So, Gandhiji went to meet Jinnah 17 times at his residence in Mumbai. Jinnah did not come even once. So, Jinnah became a leader for the Muslim community. Because of even Quaid-e-Azam, the prefix by which he is known, was given by Gandhiji only. There was a lady called Bibi Amtu Salam, who was in the Congress, and she was a great follower of Gandhiji. She told, when Gandhiji was supposed to write a letter to him, he said that you address him as Quaid-e-Azam, he will feel very good. It was Gandhiji who the first time addressed him as Quaid-e-Azam. So it was partition was a self goal. I think we did not have to make much efforts to prove it. There was enough evidence.
So there are a lot of people who are still saying that there is the Akhanda Bharat vision of certain rightist people can still be actualized. And we already have 130 crore people in India, and we have got many other problems. So how do you see that if Pakistan comes back to us, or if we were not partitioned, what would have been the situation of the country
today? It's a very hypothetical
today?
question. But if the two Germanys can unite, India can also unite. Why not? Why should we see it pessimistically?
So do you think
But
that
I
Hindu...
want to, before I throw open the floor to people, I want to stress one more thing. China, the threat of China was seen for the first time by Savarkar. In 1948, when today's China came into being, it was much weaker than India in military as well as economic terms. In 52, when Savarkar saw that China has overtaken India in military strength, particularly because of the passive policies of Jawaharlal Nehru government, he warned in 1952 that China has gone far ahead of us. We are under a threat because China has already swallowed Tibet, and the nation should rise against this. In 54, when Nehruji came up with the idea of Panchsheel, Savarkar was the first to react to it. He says that if you try to speak to China in such weak terms, Hindu Chini Bhai Bhai, so to say, then China is a communist country. Its thirst for swallowing foreign land will increase, and I won't be surprised if China attacks India and swallows India's land, which came true in 1962. This warning was also given by Guru Golwalkarji. That is very specific. Then he issued another statement during the same year, in 1954. He said, Jawaharlal Nehru, your China comprises beads of the rosary. जो माला अपन करते हैं मंत्रों की, उसकी जो बीड्स होती है, मनके होते हैं, वो मनका है। चाइना का जो पंचशील है वो है बॉम्ब, वो है मशीन गन, वो है सबमरीन, वो है मिसाइल। और उन्होंने उस टाइम पे कहा, ही एड्रेस द यूथ, इट वाज ए पब्लिक स्टेटमेंट, आई अपील टू द यूथ ऑफ द कंट्री टू राइज, वी आर इन ए वेरी डेंजरस सिचुएशन। And that time he said two principles he laid down. He said, on the world global stage, no two nations can be permanent friends or permanent enemies. Their relationship is defined by their needs. One, this was his diplomatic vision. Second was that military strength is the ultimate decider of a nation's greatness. I interpret it this way today, that we take great pride in saying that we will become a Vishwaguru. But we can't become a Vishwaguru unless we become a military power. And it is best proved by the example of Taliban in China today. Taliban has thrown America from Afghanistan. Chinese people are doing atrocities on the Uyghur Muslims right across the Afghan border. Still Taliban, which claims to be the protector of Islam on this earth, doesn't have the guts to take on China. China is next door. So how correct is Savarkar, and how we have suffered because of that? I'll end my we can open up. In 1965 war, we were only 13 kilometers away from Lahore. And Savarkar said, in 1947 he has said that we should treat Pakistan as a rebellious province and annex it at the first available opportunity. That opportunity came in 1965 war, when we were just 13 kilometers away from Lahore, and because of world pressure, the Lal Bahadur Shastri government accepted ceasefire. In Tashkent next year, we gave back whatever we had won. Again, in 1971, when Mrs. Gandhi divided Pakistan into two parts,
Bangladesh.
many felt helped in the formation of Bangladesh. Then one felt that Savarkar is reborn, but it was a wrong expectation. Next year in the Shimla agreement, in spite of holding 1 lakh soldiers as captive, Pakistani soldiers, she could not settle the Pakistan occupied Kashmir issue. On the contrary, we had won 3 Muslim majority talukas in Sindh in the 71 war, which we were holding till the Shimla agreement. We gave them back. And those Hindus who had helped the Indian army in crossing over to Sindh, they had to migrate to India, fearing retaliation from the Pakistani army. And 1 lakh Hindus migrated to India after 1971, 72 Kashmir, Shimla agreement.
Shimla agreement.
So, any person who reads this book with an open mind, this is not a hagiography. We have criticized Savarkar on many fronts.
Yes, you have criticized Savarkar
Yes.
on many fronts.
Because,
So the
for
last
example,
question is,
for example,
Udayji.
on Shastri, he got so angry with Shastri. And Shastriji unfortunately died in Tashkent, He said, I will not pay tributes to Shastri.
That is what
Shastri has done so much damage to the country that I will not pay tributes to him. I have said in my book that it was very harsh on his part. When a person has passed away, he should not have said that. So this book is not a hagiography. Anybody who sees this, reads this book with an open mind, with patriotic sentiments, will be convinced that Savarkar was also for unity of the nation, but based on genuine conditions.
So,
And
over to the...
one more thing, very important for the audience. You see how Muslim appeasement policies have continued in this country for over 60 years. 2 examples I will give you.
1.
2 examples. Two. Jinnah's Pakistan resolution had 2 parts. One part was demanding separate homeland for Muslims. The second part was how Hindus who stay back, Muslims who stay back in India will be treated. There he had demanded preferential treatment. So Congress Muslim represent policies was basically part 2 of the Pakistan resolution, number 1. And number 2, India's foreign policy. In the Khilafat resolution of Congress, which was passed under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, it was said that India, independent, if Congress comes to power after independence, its foreign policy will take into consideration the religious obligations of the Muslims. Correct? Now, how it has operated for India? When Israel came into being in 1948, one of the first resolutions which Israel passed was expressing gratitude to India and Hindus for the protection which Jews had been given in India when they were persecuted across the world. But we took 44 years to give full recognition
To Israel.
Because our foreign policy was guided by the local Muslim sentiment, not on the basis of unalloyed nationalism. And there was a period when India and Pakistan, India's biggest enemy, they were following the same policy regarding Israel.
Okay, thank you. So here is the question.
नमस्कार सर, मेरा नाम अनुज भारद्वाज, माखनलाल चतुर्वेदी विवी का इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया का छात्र। मेरे आपसे 2 क्वेश्चंस हैं। आपने पैट्रियोटिज्म की बात कही, एक सावरकर के स्टेटमेंट है कि इट्स बेटर टू स्टैंड इन लास्ट रो, और मैं सुन नहीं पाया वो पूरा, पर मैं समझ गया था। तो मेरा आपसे पूछना है कि सावरकर जी के लिए देश प्रेम की सबसे सशक्त अभिव्यक्ति क्या है?
हाँ, क्या बोल रहे हैं, बोले।
आपने एक स्टेटमेंट दिया था आपने अभी सावरकर जी की तरफ से कि उन्होंने कहा था कि इट्स बेटर टू स्टैंड इन लास्ट। मैं पूरा कंप्लीट नहीं लिख पाया उसको, पैट्रियोटिज्म के ऊपर था। तो मेरा ये सवाल है कि सावरकर जी के पर्सपेक्टिव में देश प्रेम की सबसे सशक्त अभिव्यक्ति क्या होगी, स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ पैट्रियोटिज्म? आज के जमाने में हम बहुत बात कर रहे हैं इस पे।
देखिए, उनका मैंने कहा है कई जगह पे कि सावरकर नेशन फर्स्ट और ट्रू नेशन फर्स्ट। एनीथिंग which is harmful to the country should not be done. So if the nation starts following true nation first, if our youth start following true nation first, then India's growth will increase by manifold. आप समझ रहे हो इस बात को? जैसे कि आप हो, है ना, कोई प्रश्न आपके पास ऐसा आता है, कोई आप बिजनेस डील कर रहे हो जिसमें देश को नुकसान हो रहा है जी, आप नहीं करोगे उसको क्योंकि देश को नुकसान हो रहा है। ऐसी भावना अगर अक्रॉस द बोर्ड फैल जाती पूरे देश के अंदर, तो देश की जो प्रगति है वो अनेक गुना बढ़ सकती है। सो ट्रू नेशन फर्स्ट ऑफ सावरकर इज ए यूनिक आइडिया। मतलब उसमें हमारे पॉलिटिक्स में जो चल रहा है उल्टा सीधा, हमारे अलग फील्ड में चल रहा है, सबका समाधान है उसमें।
सर, एक और क्वेश्चन। आपने बात कही गांधी जी और सावरकर की दोस्ती के बारे में, पर सावरकर जी को एक्यूज किया जाता है, उन पर चार्जेस लगे थे गांधी जी की हत्या को लेके रातूराम गोडसे के साथ, बाद में वो भले ही बरी हो गए थे। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि क्या सावरकर इन्वॉल्व थे?
मुझे बिल्कुल नहीं लगा, क्योंकि देखिए सावरकर जी ने गांधी जी के मर्डर को कंडेम भी किया था अच्छी तरह। उन्होंने कहा था कि जो एनार्की, उन्होंने उनको एक्सप्लेन भी किया था कि जो एनार्किस्ट वेज जो मैं रिकमेंड करता था पहले, दोज कैन बी जस्टिफाइड ओनली अगेंस्ट फॉरेन रूलर्स, नॉट अगेंस्ट ओन रूलर्स। स्पष्ट उन्होंने कहा था। तो मेरा स्पष्ट मानना है कि वो गोडसे का खुद का स्टेप था। और अगर माने, क्योंकि मैं तो हिंदू महासभा के पुराने लोगों को भी मिला हूं, और मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि उन्होंने गोडसे को परसुएड करने का भी प्रयत्न किया था, ऐसा मेरा स्पष्ट मानना है। क्योंकि और गोडसे विरोध भी कर रहे थे ना। आप देखो कि बारसी का सेशन हुआ हिंदू महासभा का 1946 में, 46 में बारसी का हिंदू महासभा का सेशन हुआ था। उसमें गोडसे और आपटे दोनों थे। गोडसे वॉज मेंबर ऑफ हिंदू महासभा। वहां पे भूपटकर ऐसा बोल गए, भूपटकर बोलते बोलते, हाँ, वो ऐसा बोल गए कि मौका आएगा तो हम हिंदू महासभा को हम बंद भी कर सकते हैं। तो गोडसे चक्कू लेके दौड़े उसके पीछे मारने के लिए। इससे ये भी प्रूव होता है कि गोडसे वॉज ए मैन ऑफ वेरी एक्सट्रीम नेचर।
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर।
हेलो सर, मेरा नाम रौनक है, मैं दैनिक भास्कर से हूँ। मैं दैनिक भास्कर से हूँ सर। और सर, एक समय था जब महात्मा गांधी ने वीर सावरकर को अपना भाई बताया था, इंदिरा गांधी ने उन पर डाक टिकट जारी किया था। वहीं दूसरी ओर अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी भी इस चीज के लिए लड़े थे कि वैली से जो है आपने नेहरू की फोटो क्यों हटाई थी। लेकिन आज उन्हीं के वंशज जो हैं, एक ये कहते हैं कि मेरा नाम राहुल सावरकर नहीं राहुल गांधी है, इसलिए मैं माफी नहीं मांगूंगा। दूसरी विचारधारा ये है कि वीर सावरकर सबसे बड़े हैं, इसके लिए उन्हें गांधी और नेहरू को छोटा करना पड़ रहा है। ऐसे में आपको क्या लगता है कि आने वाला समय ऐसा होगा जब वीर सावरकर वर्सेस गांधी के नाम पर जनता बट जाएगी?
वीर सावरकर के नाम पे
वीर सावरकर वर्सेस गांधी के नाम पे जनता जो है वो इस पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी के बेस पे क्या बटेगी, या फिर
देखिए ऐसा डिवीजन जैसा आप सोच रहे हो। गांधी जी का भी एक कंट्रीब्यूशन है देश के विकास में। मतलब गांधी जी का जो सोशल, मैं तो गुजरात से आता हूं, गुजरात में काम किया है मैंने। कहा गांधी जी का सोशल सर्विस मॉडल है, उसका कोई उसका वो नहीं है। मतलब देयर इज नो पैरेलल। इतने सारे वहां पे लोग समाज की भावना से काम करते हैं गुजरात में, वो गांधी जी का इन्फ्लुएंस है, सीधी बात है। और गांधी जी की इकोनॉमिक ग्राम स्वराज की बात थी उनकी। गांधी जी का प्रॉब्लम, हम ये कहते हैं गांधी वॉज ए डिजास्टर इन नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, अदरवाइज गांधी जी का तो अच्छा ही है भाई। तो ऐसा कोई क्लैश नहीं है। हम गांधी जी की अच्छी चीज, सावरकर सब बात में थोड़ी ठीक थे। हम सावरकर को देख रहे हैं, एक नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है देश के सामने। इंटरनल ताकतें हैं जो देश को डिवाइड करना चाह रही है, बाहरी ताकतें हैं जो चाहती कि भारत बड़ा देश नहीं बने। आप समझे? तो ऐसा क्लैश नहीं है। अगर हम उसको समझ लेते हैं और उनका जो उपयोगी पार्ट है उसको ही अपनाते हैं तो देश बन सकता है। कोई ऐसा क्लैश नहीं है बहुत बड़ा। लेकिन हाँ, गांधी जी के ऊपर एक ऑनेस्ट डिबेट होनी चाहिए। सब में नहीं डिबेट ऑनेस्ट नहीं चल रही ना, कि जो ऐसे लोग हैं जो गांधी जी को टोटली कंडेम कर देते हैं। फिर ऐसे बहुत बड़ी आपने जैसे कहा कि वो सावरकर को पूरी तरह कंडेम, ऐसा नहीं होता ना। महापुरुष होते हैं, उनकी गलतियां भी होती है। तो हमें नेशन फर्स्ट का, सावरकर का नेशन फर्स्ट हम माने तो हर एक नेता में से हमें अच्छी चीजें लेनी चाहिए। जैसे गांधी जी की डिबेट होनी चाहिए। डिबेट होगी तो गांधी जी का अच्छा काम तो आने ही वाला है। अच्छा ही है वो, तो समझो आप। पर गांधी जी की गलतियां कम से कम देश फिर से गलती तो ना करे वो। गांधी जी पे डिबेट ना होने देने का समय बड़ा जो नुकसान हुई है कि नेशनल सिक्योरिटी विजन हमारी डेवलप नहीं हो पा रही है जैसे होनी चाहिए। वरना तो ये पूरा हॉल भरा होता है आज। आप समझे? ये इतना बड़ा विषय है, समझे आप? तो और क्या था आपका प्रश्न?
Sir, last question from front row.
सर, मेरा नाम शरद कन्वाड़ीकर है। मैंने कहीं पढ़ा था कि सावरकर जी ने कहा था कि किसी भी देश की सीमाएं या नक्शा जो है वो तलवारों की नोक पर खींचा जाना चाहिए। मतलब वो सशस्त्र क्रांति के पुरस्कर्ता थे और यही विचार सुभाष चंद्र बोस जी का भी था। तो ये दोनों एक साथ क्लिक क्यों नहीं हो सकते, या कमी कहाँ रहेगी?
नहीं, ऐसा था। देखो, ऐसा है कि मैं कोई चीज एक घटस्फोट करूंगा यहाँ पे, जो मतलब सत्य को आपको मानना अच्छे, अगर मान रहे हो आप तो। जब मैंने ये कहा है कि वीर सावरकर भारत की राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा के पितामह हैं, तो प्रश्न आपके मन में ये आएगा कि सरदार पटेल और सुभाष चंद्र बोस कहाँ हैं? तो उसका जवाब मैं आपको देता हूं। 1930 के दशक के स्टार्टिंग में ही डिमांड उठने लगी थी कि जो वंदे मातरम है वो मूर्ति पूजा है, वो मुस्लिम वंदे मातरम नहीं गाएंगे। ये डिमांड आ चुकी थी और डिमांड बढ़ती जा रही थी। जिन्ना ने इसको उठा लिया बिल्कुल। जिन्ना का जो आप 14 डिमांड देखो तो ऐसा ही है उसमें कि गौ हत्या होनी देनी चाहिए, इस टाइप का ही था पूरा। ठीक है। तो 1936 के अंदर संकेत आने लगे कि कांग्रेस तो ये कह रही थी कि हम इसको वी विल नॉट सैक्रिफाइस वंदे मातरम। कांग्रेस का ऑफिशियल स्टैंड ये था। पर सावरकर जी के पास ऐसी विजन थी कि सावरकर जी ने अपना जो उनका जो पद ग्रहण का जो स्पीच है कर्नावती अहमदाबाद वाला 1937 वाला, उसके अंदर उन्होंने कह दिया था कि आप यहाँ याद रखना, कांग्रेस ना बोल रही है लेकिन इट विल कर्टेल वंदे मातरम टू प्लीज मुस्लिम्स। कहा ही था उन्होंने, समझो आप। कर्टेल हुआ करीबन 8 या 9 महीने के बाद। उस कमेटी में कौन था मालूम है आपको? उस कमेटी के अंदर जवाहरलाल नेहरू थे और सुभाष चंद्र बोस भी थे। जिस कमेटी ने डिसाइड किया कि मुसलमानों की डिमांड को हमें मान लेना चाहिए, उनको पार्टी में रखने के लिए, उसके ऊपर तो सुभाष चंद्र बोस का भी जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग था पैन इस्लामिस्ट का, वो इतना अच्छा नहीं था, समझो आप। लेकिन आपका जवाब मैं कहूं तो जब सुभाष चंद्र बोस ने छोड़ा देश तो सावरकर के एडवाइस भी छोड़ा था। 3 व्यक्ति थे जिन्होंने सुभाष, देखिए पहले बार वो लोग 1937 में मिले। उस टाइम पे दोनों अलग इस बात पे हुए कि हम कई मुद्दों पे हमारे विचार समान हैं, लेकिन मुसलमानों के मुद्दों पे हमारे विचार अलग हैं। सुभाष चंद्र बोला कि मैं आपके मुसलमानों के विचार से एग्री नहीं होता हूं, पर 1940 के अंदर जब पहली बार फिर से वो लोग मिले बंबई के अंदर, उस टाइम पे मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि सुभाष चंद्र बोस भी, देखिए आपको ये बात समझनी पड़ेगी कि सावरकर वॉज नॉट अगेंस्ट पेट्रियोटिक मुस्लिम्स, तो ये बात ही आपको समझ पाओगे आप, ठीक है। तो 1940 में जब सुभाष बाबू मिलने गए सावरकर जी को बंबई में, तब उन्होंने कहा कि आप कहां ये छोटे छोटे मुद्दों को बना के आप जेल में जा रहे हो, आपके पास तो विजन है बहुत बड़ी, आप मिलिट्री क्रांति के आप समर्थक हो, आप जाओ। अब जर्मनी और जापान की वो लोग, उनका जो वो था कि नो टू नेशंस आर परमानेंट फ्रेंड्स और परमानेंट एनिमीज, एंड ऑन वर्ल्ड एनिमीज एनिमी कैन बी सीन एज अवर फ्रेंड, तो उन्होंने उसको वो कहते थे एनलाइटेंड डिप्लोमेसी। एनलाइटेंड डिप्लोमेसी, देश का जो फायदा होगा वो हम करेंगे, दूसरे देश क्या सोचते हैं उसको हम नहीं सोचेंगे। तो 1940 में जब गए वो, उस टाइम पे 3 व्यक्ति थे जिन्होंने उनको एडवाइस की थी। एक थे रज बिहारी बोस, उस टाइम पे हिंदू महासभा के जापान चैप्टर के प्रेसिडेंट थे रज बिहारी बोस, करेक्ट। और सावरकर जी को बोलते थे महाराज, महाराज करके बुलाते थे वो। तो माननीय सुभाष जी को 3 जनों ने एडवाइस दी थी, एक रज बिहारी बोस, दूसरे सावरकर और एक तीसरे को एक बंगाली व्यक्ति थे। बंगाल में तीनों ने एडवाइस दी थी कि आपको छोड़ के चले जाना चाहिए।
We have to wind up, and there is last question.
He had
from David
left this
wind up.
country.
Dr.
He
Pandey.
had left this country on the advice of Savarkar.
Dr. Pandey,
So they
last
were one.
question.
दूसरा आपका क्या था प्रश्न? अच्छा, दूसरा जो इनकी बात करें अपन सरदार पटेल की, तो गांधी जी ने जब 2 लेख लिखे कि 8 करोड़ मुसलमान देश में रहना नहीं चाहते, हम कैसे रोक सकते हैं, और 1942 में जो उसको सील लगा दी कांग्रेस ने, रेजोल्यूशन पास करके कि प्रोविंसेस विल हैव ए राइट टू सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन, जो प्रांत आजाद भारत का रहना नहीं चाहते उनको हम जाने देंगे। उसमें उस टाइम पे सरदार पटेल ने विरोध नहीं किया था उसका। उस टाइम पे अगर सरदार पटेल ने विरोध किया होता तो देश का इतिहास अलग होता, पार्टीशन होता ही नहीं। पटेल कब जागे? जब रायट्स होने लगे, जब खून खराबा होने लगा, जब पटेल को लगा कि नहीं अब तो विरोध करना पड़ेगा। पर पटेल अगर 40 में जाग गए होते तो शायद भारत का विभाजन न होता। जी,
Question.
Sir, there
Jawab.
was a demand when Pakistan was created. The Hindus from Pakistan had to migrate to India. At that time, the partition was based mainly on religious basis.
yes,
What
absolutely.
was the view of Savarkarji? I think you answered that question about Muslims staying in this country.
हाँ,
Should they go to a country which has been formed on the basis of religion, or do they stay here? What was his strong?
no, he was not very clear on it. Ambedkar ji was clear that their partition should be on the basis of exchange of population. Savarkar was of firm opinion कि 3/4 कंट्री हमने आजाद कर लिया है, एक रिबेल प्रोविंस बचा है, उसको हमको जीत के वापस हमें जोड़ लेना है। वो उनका ऐसा विजन था उनका।
Thanks a lot, sir, for a wonderful and inspiring discussion. Respect, gratitude combined. Let's welcome her with a great round of applause. The memento consists of a painting being made by Padma Shri Bhuri Bai, an eminent and a fine piece of art. And here's the painting